You are standing just inches away from a priceless Van Gogh masterpiece. To your naked eye, those swirling blues and deep yellows look just as vibrant, just as alive as the exact day they were first painted. But what you can't see is the active murder mystery happening right beneath the surface. At the subatomic level, that very painting is actively dissolving into dust before our very eyes. The vibrant colors of our history are under a relentless, totally invisible siege. And honestly, for centuries, we have been losing the fight. Which brings us to a really fascinating question. Why do these masterpieces turn to dust in the first place? For thousands of years, artisans crushed up natural minerals, things like cinnabar, malachite, lapis lazuli, to capture the absolute beauty of the world around them. But why do some of those masterworks stay beautifully luminous while others just fade away into a dull gray obscurity? Well, the answer isn't in the artist's brushstrokes. It is in the incredibly unstable chemistry happening at a scale so tiny it literally defies human comprehension. We're stepping into an awe-inspiring era where we can no longer treat paint as just decoration. It's actually a complex metallic interface fighting an endless, brutal war against time.
Okay, let's dive into this molecular vulnerability. The main villain here is something chemists call ligand field displacement. Now, I know that sounds incredibly dense, but let's break it down into something really simple. Think of the transition metal ions inside a pigment, like a perfectly tuned guitar string. When you pluck that string, it plays a crisp, beautiful, vibrant note. And visually, that means it reflects a bright red or a deep blue right to your eye. But when moisture and chemical oxidation hit that string over time, it begins to rust, it loosens, and suddenly that crisp, perfect note turns into a dull, muted thud. This molecular detuning is exactly what happens when atmospheric pollutants permanently alter the energy levels deep inside the paint.
And that molecular detuning perfectly sets up the next major threat. It's an invader tactic known as the replacement dance. Look at historical pigments, like Naples yellow or copper-based verdigris. When sulfur-bearing gases in the air hit them, they literally kick out the original atoms and aggressively insert themselves right into the molecular structure. The bright reflective metal oxide turns into a dull, light-absorbing metal sulfide. Picture a pristine, bright white snow-covered landscape. Now imagine it slowly being buried beneath an opaque, sticky layer of dark soot. The original bright white snow is technically still down there, but it's trapped. It's buried beneath a dirty, irreversible veil, completely hidden from sight.
And you know what? The situation actually gets even worse. The organic medium holding all this pigment together, stuff like linseed oil or egg yolk, ages over time and undergoes a brutal process called chain scission. Those long, strong molecular strands essentially get chopped up into tiny, brittle little pieces. Think of it like the architectural collapse of a house. When the roof and the walls cave in, the fragile inhabitants inside, which are the pigment particles, are left entirely exposed to the raging elements outside. Without that structural shield, the artwork evaporates. Conservators have a term for this. They call it chalking, which is where the image quite literally turns to dust on the canvas.
The sheer scale of this battle is what makes it so incredibly difficult to stop. We are talking about the angstrom level here. At this tiny, microscopic scale, the surface area is absolutely massive. That means every single individual molecule of paint is out there on the front lines, getting bombarded relentlessly by oxygen, photons, and thermal energy. Imagine a pigment particle as a thriving, bustling city, but it's a city with absolutely no walls, experiencing a constant, brutal siege by invisible invaders. Traditional restoration, which is usually just painting on some clear varnish, is literally just throwing a flimsy plastic tarp over that defenseless city. Sure, it offers some temporary cover, but it totally fails to fix the crumbling foundation underneath.
Which brings us to a truly mind-bending leap in modern technology. Chapter 2. Armor for Atoms.
We are finally moving away from just passively observing this decay, and we're stepping into active, aggressive preservation. We're using something called nonlinear spectroscopic passivation. Essentially, we are now treating paint like high-tech machinery that requires atomic-level maintenance if it's going to survive. To pull this off, scientists are actually borrowing techniques straight from the semiconductor industry, specifically a process called Atomic Layer Deposition, or ALD. Through ALD, they can meticulously grow a layer of inert metal oxide glass, like alumina or titania, atom by atom, right around every single speck of pigment. Imagine taking a piece of fresh fruit and shrink-wrapping it in an invisible, entirely airtight layer of plastic. The oxygen can't get in to rot it, the moisture can't leak out, but that gorgeous color and texture, it remains perfectly visible to the human eye forever.
And the real magic here relies on a fascinating concept called chemistry fog. See, in the standard paint job, layers just kind of sit on top of each other. It's kind of like a stack of loose papers sitting on a desk. They can easily slide apart or peel off. But with chemistry, Fawn, you are fundamentally welding that protective atomic shield directly into the surface atoms of the pigment itself. You are permanently bonding the armor to the artifact at the absolute most fundamental chemical level possible. There is no peeling that apart.
By doing this, we create a monolithic, totally impenetrable structure. When those chemical invaders, the sulfur, the oxygen, the moisture, when they attempt their destructive replacement dance, they hit this inert ceramic shell, and they just bounce completely harmlessly away. It is exactly like throwing a tennis ball against a massive, solid brick wall. It doesn't matter how incredibly hard you throw that ball, right? The wall doesn't even flinch. And the fragile inner sanctum remains completely, beautifully untouched.
But the crazy part is, scientists aren't just stopping at a physical barrier. By doping the ceramic shell with specific rare earth elements, we can actually manage the energy itself. These elements act like a pair of atomic sunglasses. They automatically absorb harmful high-energy UV radiation and literally convert it into low-energy infrared heat, which then safely dissipates into the canvas. So it blocks the damaging light, but it lets the visible spectrum pass through perfectly. By regulating this energy at the atomic level, we are essentially forcing the pigment into a state of perpetual, glowing youth. No fading, ever.
Now, I want you to pause and think about that for a second, because we need to think much, much bigger than just art galleries. Chapter 3, Healing Cars, Saving Cities.
The implications of this atomic engineering are bleeding out into massive modern infrastructure. Because the exact same chemical reactions destroying a delicate Renaissance painting, they are also eating away at limestone cathedrals and concrete facades in our urban environments, mostly due to acid rain. But by applying this transparent passivation coating, we can turn a massive building into what is essentially a concrete submarine. We can completely seal urban history against acidic pollution, allowing these giant structures to safely traverse the caustic ocean of modern industrial life without a single drop of acid breaching the hull.
And if you look at the aerospace and automotive luxury industries, they're taking this a massive step further, with self-healing paints. Imagine a car gets scratched. Boom. Underneath the passivated pigment, an encapsulated resin ruptures right on impact. The binding agent bleeds out, perfectly fills the crack, and then ambient UV light instantly polymerizes and hardens the seal. It functions exactly like a human body getting a cut and immediately producing a biological scab to seal the wound and prevent infection. The paint is no longer a static, dead material upon a surface. It's practically a responsive biological system. But with this almost godlike power over matter, we run headfirst into a massive philosophical wall. Is a preserved artwork still original if it has been chemically modified at the subatomic level? This is the ultimate ship of Theseus paradox played out in real time. If we go in and meticulously weld an alien atomic shield to every single molecule of a classic painting, does it actually remain the true work of the original master? It creates this deep, profound tension between our desperate desire for immortality and the pure, strict requirement of authenticity. To navigate that exact tension, scientists are using all this precise data to create a totally new field, digital archaeology. By measuring how fast unpassivated versus passivated samples decay, we can calculate the exact chemical half-life of historical pigments. We can literally create predictive degradation models that show us exactly what an artifact will look like in 500 years. It is absolutely mind-blowing. We are effectively generating a weather map for history. And that allows us to forecast the storms of chemical degradation and actively steer human heritage toward a much safer future.
Okay, let's dive into the absolute final frontier of all this. Chapter 4, The End of Paint.
The pace of innovation we're seeing here is just staggering. We are moving past reactive chemical protection entirely. We're looking toward a future where we don't just protect volatile materials, we replace the entire concept of paint completely. Scientists are looking at the natural world, specifically at things like butterfly wings and beetle shells. Now, those organisms don't use chemical pigments to get their dazzling colors. They use structural color. These are tiny, physical microstructures that physically bend and scatter incoming light. If we can engineer a synthetic, clear varnish that creates a refractive lattice right on a surface, we completely remove the need for chemical pigments. The color will exist solely in the light bouncing off the surface, making it 100% immune to chemical decay.
Just look at the stark difference here. On the one side, you have reactive physical paint, which is fundamentally destined to rot and degrade. On the other side, you have non-material color. Think of it like a holographic projector. It doesn't matter if the room is damp or if it's filled with sulfur and dust, because the image isn't made of a physical, degrading paste. It is made of pure light. By manipulating photonics instead of chemistry, we decouple visual performance from physical decay entirely.
And that number, 10, it represents the ultimate real-world goal of all this, the stasis economy.
What happens when a coat of paint, or the wall of a building, or even a computer circuit board lasts 10 times longer than it does today? By extending the life of our materials by orders of magnitude, we drastically reduce our need to extract new raw materials from the earth, and we massively slash the carbon footprint associated with constant manufacturing and replacement. In this new stasis economy, longevity itself becomes a brand new natural resource.
Which brings us to our final lingering thought. By mastering chromatic metallurgy, by reinforcing the very atomic walls of our materials, are we merely preserving the past, or have we actually become the designers of the eternal? We finally possess the agency to defy the thermodynamics of decay that constantly, relentlessly seek to reclaim our creations. It is a profound shift for humanity. We're no longer just artists or engineers. We are the guardians of permanence. Keep that in mind the next time you look at a museum painting, or even just the paint on your car, because the invisible war against time is one we might actually win.